Samuel Bennett left home as quietly as a thief, though the only thing he stole was himself. The dawn was still damp on the windows when he slipped from the little Welsh town that had held him like a polite jailer. His mother slept. The cat purred in the ashes, and the kettle sighed. Small sounds of a world he had outgrown. He carried no luggage but a half-broken suitcase and the reckless faith of youth. Inside were shirts, a worn notebook, and a cracked mirror. Enough to remind him who he was, or perhaps who he wasn't. The road stretched out before him like a promise, or a dare. The fields still smelled of dew and dung. The hills hunched their shoulders in the mist. Behind him the town dreamed on, unaware that one of its sons had cut the cord. Samuel had no plan, only a hunger, not for bread but for something unnamed, the bright fever of life beyond the fences, the taste of freedom that burned and sweetened at once. He imagined London as a living creature, vast, glittering, dangerous, a beast that might swallow him or make him new. By midday the rain came, soft and apologetic, soaking him to the bone. He laughed, lifting his face to the sky. The boy who had never been more than a shadow in his own house now felt painfully, gloriously alive. At the station he bought a ticket with trembling hands, his heart hammering like a trapped bird. The whistle screamed, the train coughed into motion. The fields blurred, the hills shrank, and the town, with all its kind lies and small certainties, fell away behind him. In the window's reflection, Samuel saw a stranger, pale, curious, burning with both fear and delight. He smiled at that stranger, the first true smile of his life. For better or worse, he was finally in motion. London rose before Samuel like a fever dream, all noise, smoke, and golden grime. The air itself seemed alive, tasting of soot and opportunity. Streets twisted and collided like veins in a living heart, pulsing with wagons, cries, and footsteps that never ceased. He wandered through it, wide-eyed, clutching his suitcase as though it might anchor him to sanity. He found a room above a pub in Camden Town, the kind of place that smelled of stale beer and damp wallpaper, where dreams and debts both grew thick. The landlady, a woman with the smile of a disappointed saint, handed him a key without looking up. "You'll pay in advance, love," she said, and Samuel did, with the last coins that jingled like false hope in his pocket. Days blurred into nights, nights into smoky mornings. He took odd jobs, errand boy, clerk, bottle washer, each one short-lived, each one teaching him that freedom had teeth. Yet he watched, always watched, the drunks swaying like prophets, the lovers arguing like poets, the clerks hunched under gaslight, their faces pale as wax. London was cruel, yes, but it glittered with the cruelness of beauty. One evening he met a girl named Myfanwy, a Welsh ghost in the city's roar. She sold flowers by the bridge, her laughter sharp as glass. They drank gin in a back room where the ceiling wept, and she told him, "Everyone in London's an actor. You just need to choose your part." Samuel smiled, half believing. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps he could be anyone, not the son of a quiet mother and a stuttering town, but a man of stories, of wit, of reckless invention. As he stumbled home through the fog, he felt the city breathing around him, whispering in 1,000 accents, promising everything and nothing. He didn't yet know it, but the play had begun, and he was both author and fool. The city had begun to swallow him. Samuel no longer wandered, he ran, from job to job, lie to lie, face to face, always trying to keep up with the person he was pretending to be. The boy who once watched from windows now stood on the street corners shouting for life to see him. His laughter grew louder, his pockets emptier. One night, he found himself at a party in Soho, a den of smoke, perfume, and two bright eyes. Writers, dreamers, failures, and liars crowded the room, their words clinking louder than the glasses. Samuel was among them, his heart pounding with the thrill of belonging. Someone asked him what he did. Without thinking, he said, "I'm a writer." The lie felt sweet, inevitable. The girl beside him smiled and said, "Then speak, poet." So he did. Words spilled out, half memory, half invention, tales of whales and rain and longing, of ghosts in small towns and mothers who prayed too softly. The room hushed. For a moment he felt holy. The sound of his own voice filled him like a fever. But when he finished, silence broke not with applause, but with laughter, thin, pitying, cruel. "Pretty talk," someone said, "for a boy without a name." Another clinked his glass. "Read it down, lad. The city eats poets for breakfast." The laughter stung sharper than truth. Samuel left without a word, the echo of it following him through the fog. On the bridge, he looked into the Thames, dark and shifting like the heart of the city itself. His reflection wavered, blurred, and broke apart. He saw not a writer or a man, but a boy lost between who he was and who he pretended to be. He wanted to curse the city, but the words would not come. He felt instead the old ache of the hills, the ghost of his mother's voice, the stillness he had fled. For the first time, London felt vast and empty, and he, smaller than ever, stood trembling on its edge, a speck of smoke in the skin trade of souls. Morning crept through the city like a ghost, pale and exhausted. Samuel woke in his narrow bed, his head full of last night's laughter, that cruel, glittering sound that refused to fade. The walls around him sweated with damp. His notebook lay open on the floor, a few drunken scrawls staining the page. Words that had once felt like wings now looked like bruises. He walked the streets until his feet blistered. The same city that had dazzled him now seemed made of glass, beautiful, fragile, and cold. Every alley hummed with loneliness. The flower girl was gone from her corner. The pub door was shuttered. Even the river looked tired. London, once his promised land, had become a mirror of his own undoing. At noon, he found Mfanwe again by chance, her laughter dimmer, her face thinner. "You look lost," she said softly. "I was found once, but it didn't last." They walked together through the fog, neither speaking much. When she took his hand, it felt less like romance and more like mercy. They stopped by the river, watching the barges slide past like slow thoughts. Mfanwe hummed an old Welsh tune, the kind his mother used to hum when the kettle sang. Samuel closed his eyes. For the first time in months, he let the ache settle, not fight it. He realized then that he had mistaken hunger for purpose. The city hadn't betrayed him, it had merely shown him himself, raw, foolish, tender, and unready. His lies had been the only honest thing about him. They revealed what he wished to be. When they parted, Mfanwe kissed his cheek. "Go home," she whispered, not unkindly. That night, Samuel packed his suitcase, lighter now than when he arrived. The cracked mirror was gone, the notebook still half empty. But he felt something stirring again, not the fever of escape, but the quiet pull of truth. The train whistle in the distance sounded almost like forgiveness. The journey back was quieter than his flight away. No bright hunger, no trembling pulse of escape. The train slid through the gray morning like a thought too long delayed. Samuel sat by the window, watching the fields return, slow and endless. The hills of Wales rose from the mist like old gods, patient and unchanging. He felt both smaller and more himself than ever before. When he stepped off at the little station, the air tasted of rain and coal smoke, home's rough perfume. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. The same cobbled street led to his mother's house, The same church bell tolled its tired hour. But Samuel no longer saw the town as a cage. It was a story, his first, his truest, one he had run from before he could understand it. His mother met him at the door, her eyes wet but calm. "Back for good, then?" she asked. "Back for now," he said, and she smiled as if that were enough. Over tea, the silence between them was soft, forgiving. That evening, he climbed the hill behind the house. The sea stretched below, silver and infinite. The wind pressed against him like an old friend testing his resolve. He opened his notebook, still half empty, its pages waiting, and began to write, not about London, not about failure or fame, but about the boy who left and the man who returned to find the story waiting in his own skin. He wrote until the light thinned to blue and the sea blurred into sky. His words came slower now, steadier, like breath after running. There was no audience, no applause, only the quiet rhythm of creation, the same rhythm as the tide. When at last he closed the notebook, the world seemed gentler, its edges softened by understanding. He knew he would leave again someday, not to escape, but to carry home within him. For the first time, Samuel Bennett was not running from the world. He was walking toward it. Below, the town lights flickered like stars that had chosen to stay, and above, the wind carried the faintest sound of laughter, not cruel this time, but kind, as if the city and the boy had finally forgiven each other.